Yo, what's up? Rowan here with Connor McHale, Team GB and Clapham Ultimate. And before we run this international clinic in Poland, we're going to bring you 3 common throwing mistakes. First common mistake today is on the forehand. Now, if you think about it, if you're just natural, you can do this at home. If you're relaxed, your palm is facing your body. If you bring your hand up, your palm is facing across. But when we throw a flick, the palm's up. So what ends up happening from here into the release is our body wants to pronate that wrist. But when you do that, the disc tends to turn over. This is going to ruin your distance simply because the Frisbee wants to fly when it's flat, and anytime it starts to get bladey, it's going to fall and you'll only be able to throw it 15 or 20 yards. You'll also notice that if that pronation is occurring when you're releasing, the disc is going to wobble because it's feeling that off-axis torque. We really want to focus on keeping the angle of the wrist and the palm the same through the release and keeping the disc nice and flat. You can notice that as I release, the palm is still facing pretty much up, and I'm not allowing the disc to turn over, which the body will want to do naturally. One great way to practice this if you're making the mistake is to simply ask your partner to stand a few yards to your right so you can practice the opposite. And if we slide Connor over a little bit, now I'm going to be forced to really keep that palm flat and almost the opposite way. This is easier to practice short range. When you try to throw max distance, that's when you're also going to start to feel that pronation. So make sure to work here, get comfortable, get confident, and start to lengthen the throat. The second common mistake today is players on the forehand have a tendency to push and kind of throw the disc. It might look something like this, where you start near your body and you just kind of release the disc as like a throw. If you think of somebody fishing, then they don't start here and throw the line in front of them. They reach back, make sure there's tension, and then feel that tension and snap forward. It's the same thing with a throw. You're going to actually reach back with your arm, get tension on this Frisbee with your middle finger, and pull that tension through, creating a whip and a snap. If you're just pushing the disc, you're losing a lot of potential power in this windup, and you're not going to be able to throw it very far. The other problem with this push is that everything is so close to your body that the defender and the mark is going to be able to stop most throws. Now, the ability to generate this power in the backswing can also allow you to step out and throw it away from the mark, delivering it safely in a game. To practice this common mistake, simply get the elbow off the body, bring it back, feeling some of the tension, and really try to work on spinning and adding some rotational velocity to the Frisbee. Once you have that, you can start to add more and more power with the elbow, with the backswing, with the lower body, and soon you'll be able to huck full field.
Another reason why you want to make sure that you're creating that whipping style motion instead of the push is that then translates from the forehand into both the scuba and the hammer. And with those throws, we're trying to generate as much spin as possible to make sure that the disc is going to hold its shape throughout the air. And that's largely because that is how we learn to throw. We learn to step across, step away from our mark, and pull through with the arm for the backhand. But there are going to be situations in game where we don't necessarily need to do that full throwing motion to get the disc where we want it to go. One of these could be you've just caught the disc in front of the end zone and you just need to pop out a quick backhand. Another more common one is catching the disc from the pull. So a great way to practice this is pretending that we've just caught the disc from a pull, and I have my centering receiver upfield who's going to be starting the play, but I just need to get the disc to them as quickly as possible. I could step across and throw my regular full pivot backhand with my full throwing motion and that pivot across. But realistically, that's kind of wasting time that I have just to get the disc into play so we can get our offense started. So what I'm looking to do is try and isolate my throwing motion regardless of where my lower body is situated. So as I catch a centering pull, I'm not going to try and pivot across. I'm actually going to try and experiment just throwing my snappy flat backhand with that lead foot being in different positions. Now you can turn this into a full drill by using the clock face drill. So I'm going to imagine that I am stood in the middle of a clock face, with 12 being right in front and 6 being directly behind. And then I'm going to put my lead foot in different places on the clock face, and I'm still going to try and isolate that throwing motion in exactly the same way, regardless of whether my lead foot is in kind of that 2 or 3 o'clock regular pivot position, or whether it's actually behind me to my left here in, say, the 7 or 8 o'clock position. The throwing motion and the throwing snap pretty much wants to be exactly the same throughout. And that's going to simulate different positions of being on the field in different situations, where I'm just needing to get the disc out as quickly as possible, regardless of where my feet are. So we'll start at 3 o'clock, that regular pivot position. We can bring that forward to the 12 o'clock point. Can even bring that all the way back to the 5 o'clock point. And that throwing motion is pretty much going to be exactly the same throughout.
If you're looking to get the most out of Ultimate this year, then trust me as your personal coach. I got my strength and conditioning certification last year, and I've been working with thousands of players for the last decade to make them the best player possible. You get a free consultation, description below. And if you want to proceed, then we'll work together to map out your plan week in, week out, so you can be the best player that you've always wanted to be.